that somebody's phone number got sucked into my phone. I'm just sitting here being like, am I taking I feel like I'm in Zoolander. Like, I'm like, am I taking crazy pills? And the craziest part about it is, I think you originally made this comparison of making fun of Joy Reid and be like, oh, it's just like those Russian hackers who hacked her old blog posts. I'm like, they genuinely think not only are you so stupid that you're just going to sit there and take it, but this is an indictment of the entire like MAGA ecosystem, which is either silent on it and or just backing Trump up, being like, actually, it's Goldberg's fault. I saw somebody say, like, he should have left the chat immediately. Like, what?
It's the opposite. He's just
It's like, no, guys. The point is he's a CIA cutout because he left the chat. You don't leave the chat. You stay forever, and then you leak some stuff to your colleagues or whatever. I'm so stunned by how they're trying to give them a pass, and they're like, no scalps or whatever. And it's like, well, hold on a second. Like, I thought that we're supposed to have merit or whatever. But similarly, I personally know several federal employees who have been screwed by either work, coming back, chaotic procedure, no office space, which even though they were called back, sheer stupidity. I know several people who've either taken the buyout offer, etc. So you're firing tens of thousands of people, including park rangers and the nuclear scientists who you're then rehiring, on the theory that all these people are dead weight, and then you have this guy, the most basic screw up of all time for the top national security advisor, and he gets a pass. You don't think that people aren't going to see this?
Yeah.
That's my thing about fairness as well. If you're going to fire all of these people, then you should actually be even more ruthless with the people and yourself. But no, they're setting a different standard, and it's like, okay, I think America should really pay attention. That the sheer idiocy, the stupidity, the lying, the expecting you to, if you're MAGA out there and they think you're a fucking idiot. Like that, I want you to be clear. Like, that's what they think of you. They think you're so dumb. And to be honest, many of them are right. That you will just serve as some sentinel and be like, actually, it's the left that's the problem here. That's demanding a scale. We don't play by their rules. I'm just like, okay, then, just have a moron at the top of your national security advisor. I'm sure the entire country will be better off for it. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
I really can't.
Tribalism rots brains.
It's amazing.
It really does. Yeah. And I mean, I think the reason so first of all, that interview Mike Waltz gave to Laura Ingraham,
oh my God.
It felt like, I guess he didn't think he would be pressed at all by her.
Yeah, I know.
And so even the basic question of like, yeah, but why was this number in your phone? He had to come up on the fly with this like, oh, well, maybe it got like sucked into my phone. And then I loved when he was like, we're going to get the best minds on it. Like, we already know what happened.
No,
like,
Elon's technical experts
are
looking. Again,
we all know what happened here. It's you and Jeffrey Goldberg have the same ideology. Like, you're allies. You may be on different political teams technically, but in all of this, you are allies. So it's very obvious what happened here. I think with regard to, he feels like he has to lie about it because he feels like the biggest sin for Trump in particular
Goldberg's number
would be being friendly with Goldberg, somebody that he hates.
It does say something, though, doesn't it, about the whole relationship with him and Goldberg, where that is, like you just said, you do have the same uniparty ideology. And all the reporting from behind the scenes is that Waltz, quote, annoys his colleagues because he's constantly talking about bombing Iran.
He's like,
he's like, oh, actually, you even saw in the chats, right? Like, he's like a brain dead idiot being like, freedom of navigation, please, sitting in there. Anybody from the Atlantic Council could have written something like that. It's just the way that this has all gone down just demonstrates also the stupidity. Why did Trump, Michael Tracy made a good point, because I was like, oh, this is a person who's out of step with the Trump admin. And he was like, that's not even true because Trump picked him. I go, you know what? You're completely right.
Yeah.
Trump picked him for this job. So what are we all supposed to sit here and think?
And the person who supposedly was, is closest to Trump, Stephen Miller, who sort of was speaking for Trump, in coming in and say, okay, well, this is, sorry, JD, about your concerns, but this is what the boss actually wants. Stephen Miller, and Stephen Miller is there backing up we're going to bomb them. We're going to bomb this apartment building. Yay to, the death and destruction, and great job, everybody, even though, not a word is said about the fact that this policy, which, by the way, they've continued to bomb and has continued to not work. This policy was tried in the Biden administration. It was a failure. There is no even expectation that it's going to be successful this time around. It's just like bombing for the sake of bombing and because Israel wants us to. So the whole thing is getting a look at those chats. It shows you how incredibly like idiotic and facile and borderline insane the foreign policy, the standard foreign policy thinking is in this administration, and it's a carryover, this particular policy carryover from the last administration as well. And it also really gives you a window, this is something I was talking to Ryan and Emily about on Friday, it gives you a window into like, okay, JD does his little like, well, you know, this is really like kind of Europe's problem. He's shot down by everyone who cares to weigh in that thread.
Yes, you're right.
There should have been, like, it's not just Mike Waltz. There should have been, theoretically, Pete Hegseth has had this come to Jesus moment, and now he's MAGA, and he's America first, and he's against the wars, blah, blah, blah. He's not backing him up. There's no one in that chain. Tulsi Gabbard's on that chain.
Yeah, you're
She's
right.
not backing him up. Steve Witkoff is in there. He's, you know, running around Moscow at the time. He's not back. Nobody in there has anything to say other than, yes, go team, bomb the apartment building, get the bad guys, way to go. Not a mention of the fact that the policy will accomplish literally nothing other than complete and utter, you know, other than death and destruction and
Let's linger on that.
Israel.
This is a very important
Israel's
point.
bidding.
What was the easiest thing to do? The lowest common denominator opinion in Washington is bomb the Houthis and or let's stick it to Iran. Even JD, if we're all being honest, the Europe thing is probably just, I have no inside knowledge. I'm just telling you from what I think.
It's
very
weak sauce.
obviously, it's like one of these like, yeah, but Europe, you know, Europe is bad and that's why we shouldn't do it, which is like obviously something that you use because you know it's a framework that everybody has to be built into. It's fine. You know, you don't hate the player, you hate the game. But, you know, as you said, it's the one voice. And then Miller comes in, shuts it down. Mike Waltz comes in, again, with some literal copy pasta from ChatGPT about freedom of navigation, about why we got to do it. Pete Hegseth's like, we're going to go. We should go right now. And we've been bombing Yemen now for multiple days. That's, you know, nobody just sits there and go, hey, did it work? You know, what happened? How much did we spend on this operation? You know, tens of millions of dollars. We have now spent and discharged more missiles against the Houthis than in all the previous 30 years of combat from the United States of America. We don't sit there and just take any stock of any of that. It's like, it's so ridiculous. And it shows you too, that the hardest thing to do is to even use some fake argument about like, maybe we shouldn't do this. that is the difficulty. That's the difficulty in Washington today, is to actually preach restraint even couched in political rhetoric. That is actually the sickness at the heart. And it also shows you all, going to war, it's easy. You know, every time I've read about the decision to go to war in Iraq, you would think that it would be difficult. No. It was the easy decision to make. Yeah. Not only was the psyoped American people in on it, the media was bloodthirsty, Congress wanted to do something. It took lone voices of courage to say, no, we should not do this. And even they failed or didn't prevail or were compromised, you know, in their own way. Yes, sure, it's great to be vindicated years later. It doesn't matter if you don't say anything at the time. It's just you're done. Yeah. And we're going to end up in a disaster. I really fear that's where we're, tomorrow we're going to cover this Iran situation. Things are not good right now. You know, the rejection of negotiations and all that. I know what the solution is. We all do. We know where things are going to end up. It's the easiest path of least resistance for them, but definitely not for us.
And all done so casually. I mean, that's what, the emojis, that's why everybody's sort of sticking on that, understandably, because, yeah, it feels like, you know, a group chat you'd be in with your buddies or your family or, you know, I said on Friday, like your kids' soccer team coordinating snacks for the next game or whatever. Like, it feels so casual, and yet 50-some people were killed in this strike. Like, you know, fist pound emoji, fire, American flag. There's not a care or consideration over who is this target? Is this, we're talking about a civilian apartment building here that we're collapsing. We're all just like celebrating like that's fine. And, you know, I know that our foreign policy has killed many civilians, but they always tell us, oh, we take all the care and consideration. And, you know, at least in the past, now it's not even contemplated. So to have these decisions that are both life and death for the people that are being bombed, and also can have extraordinary consequences in terms of, you know, pulling our nation into potential war with Iran. to be taken so casually and with so